Hello, and welcome to Mee Gindys.
And this time it's a series with a difference as we take a tour of some of the wonderful Tholtans around the Isle of Man. And we're going to call this, H?
We are going to call it Tholtan Wanderers.
So over the course of the next 3 weeks, we are going to visit some of these little gems which are dotted all around the island. And I think this is a great pastime for anyone.
It is. If you go out walking, if you enjoy the great Manx countryside, some fresh air, you will not have failed to see at some stage or other a building, an old barn, an old farmstead, something in a form of decay. You take a look at it and you can tell people have lived there.
Well, let's start then at our first Tholtan location with a conversation we were having about how many of these little places there are over here.
I think anyone who's walked on the island, go out for a ramble or something, you don't have to go that far, do you, before you'll almost always bump into some sort of ruined or deserted building. And if you're anything like us, and we like to think a few of you are, but who knows, then you start thinking about, well, who lived there then? What stories does this building hold? Why was it abandoned? And that's the one that always gets me, is this whole thing about why did someone at some stage close the door and never come back?
And that's the thing, I think you get a real sense of this and buildings around the Isle of Man that, like as you say, they were so full of life. There were families that lived there, they worked the land. And then one day that front door was closed and they never went back. And the sad reality is that as much as we have so many of these around the Isle of Man, is that increasingly they are in really poor states of repair. And there's a real worry that we're going to lose them. And I wonder if maybe we haven't realised just how vital these are as part of our natural history and heritage.
It's true. And I think we've come out today. Well, you better tell people where we are.
Well, we're in Tholtan Will and we're with somebody who knows a lot more about Tholtans than we do. And Ray Kelly has actually written 3 volumes of books on Manx Tholtans. And we are delighted that Ray agreed to pop out with us to one of your favourites. Is it fair to say, Ray, this one?
Yeah, I love this one, Beth, because it's easy to get to and it's got such a stunning view out over the horizon. You've got Scotland down that side, Tholtans on a hillside here, Tholtans in the trees there, Tholtans over here. And he could be in another place.
So where did your interest in Tholtans come from then?
My original interest came from a guy called Mike Goldie. And he, many years ago, did a book called The Manx Crofter, or something like that. And he knew I was going to update it. But he unfortunately died or became ill, so we couldn't do it. So I took over what he had done and just added to it, really. So that was where my interest came, and I've been doing it for about 30 years, I suppose.
And one of the things H and I were just saying is that the sad reality is so many of them are literally crumbling away.
Absolutely, yeah. There's only one I know that's protected, and there's a place called the Dew up in Balaf, and that has one of the Tholtans which is actually capped and will be preserved. But the rest of them, like this one behind us, half the wall has fell out this winter. Across the valley there's that one's called Creggans. Its wall fell out last year, as you can see the side's gone. So there'll be a pile of stones eventually in the future, and there's so much other stuff we waste money on.
This is the one in Tholtan Will then,
yeah,
which would have been a bustling place. We'll talk a little bit about where we're standing at the moment, but do we know anything about the people who lived here?
This is not the original Tholtan Will farm, it's further up, but there's nothing of it left. And most of these farms were inhabited by quails originally. They came to the Isle of Man in the late 1700s, and the story I've got from the museum is that they got shipwrecked off Derby somewhere. And they just swore as brothers that if they ever survived, they'd get as far away from the sea as they could, which is why they came up here. That's the story. So you'll find most of these Tholtans were inhabited by quails of one way or another over the years. That's the story. This one was probably inhabited up until between the First and Second World War. Like most of these ruins, they became abandoned when people could get easier work in the towns. They'd leave here and say to their parents, "We'll be back," but they never came back. They got married and stayed in the town. Of course, the old people got old, couldn't look after the places. And I was saying to Howard before, some of these places, they just got up one morning and said, "Too old," locked the door and left them.
And that's the crazy thing, isn't it, which we were pondering about before, this idea that you could at some stage. You can't imagine doing it in your own home, can you? Just thinking, that's it, I'm off, close the door.
And never go back.
And never go back.
No. Over there, across the valley, is a place called Ballamin. And I was saying, it was one of the first ones I went to, was about 25 years ago. There was coats hanging on the back of the door, pots and stuff in the kitchen. And, all the stuff they couldn't take, they'd left. And there's one up in Glen Rushen, which, if you're going to do another one, it's a great one to do. It's a round table down to Glen May. There's lots on there. And there's two up there. And they used to keep a light for each other's house. And if the light went out, one would go and see what was wrong with the other one. Well, the light went out in this place one day, so the fellow went from next door to over there. And it was dead quiet. There's nobody about. There's nothing on. And when he went in the house, there was a little note on the table just said, "Gone to America."
Blimey. That seems almost incredible, doesn't it? I mean, literally a different lifetime ago. But, I mean, we're not talking actually realistically very long ago.
No, it's not 1,000 years ago. It's not caveman stuff like, There's pictures of the one along the road there. Just over here, see that one over there? That's called Slue Mannock. It was supposed to be originally a home of some monks. Myerscough monks came over here, and we're up in that particular part. If you go up a bit further up there, there's Block Erie Dam, and further up there's Block Erie Tholtan at the top of the dam head as well. You could spend days up here.
Oh, do you know, it's just fascinating. So we're standing in, I presume, what would have been the front garden?
Yeah.
So we've got some thorn trees behind, which I've just learned was where they used to hang their washing.
On the hawthorn?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, we don't have no pegs or washing line, you see, so this would hold it. They'd be a lot lower to put their pots and pans and their washing on the line. It'd be perfect. And this, to me, is one of the better ones because there's a lovely aspect. And all these ruins, without the trees, were always in view of each other. There was a problem.
Yeah.
They would always be here. Like, in its heyday, there'd be 300 or 400 people living up here.
So that's the thing, at the moment you get a real sense of isolation, but it's really interesting thinking about back then. You wouldn't have felt that. No. You'd have felt part of a community almost.
You would have been, like down the village, there's a pub, a church, there's a school, and all the things that you needed were here, really. And they never went far. What happened? They would marry somebody next door, build up a little house, then they'd get married to somebody else. So they'd move on. The last people to live up here lived in Killabrega, which is just around the corner, and those trees there.
Right.
And they moved down. At the bottom of Tholtan Will, there's a house by a cattle grid. They worked down from there, and he was 85, and this guy used to walk up that road every day to feed his hens. And there's some little quirks, like we always found in a garden the grinding wheel for sharpening things. I know it seems crazy, but having a sharp tool when it was a manual was such an important part of life. And we always found them at the bottom of the garden. They were never near the house, and I couldn't work this out. And he says, well, it's simple, she said. These would be thatched, and there'd be sparks.
Oh, of course.
Gosh.
So everything was done for a purpose, and when they built these things, there was always water,
right,
shelter, and fuel. Those are the only three things they were worried about. And this one here has got a water wheel, or had a water wheel, which is quite rare. The other thing about all these up here, there's 12 of them, 12 or 15. They all had their own threshing mill, a horse mill. Horse worked round a circle and operate machinery. Now, these horse mills were £130 in 1860, 1870.
How did they get it here?
So that's it. Well, these places weren't worth any money. So where did they get the money to buy the horse mill?
You've got your shorts on again.
I've always got my shorts on, as it were. So we're standing just below the Tholtan here, the roof. Roof's long gone.
Well, do you know, this gable end here, as we're standing looking at the left-hand side, as we're looking at it, that actually only came down in the last winter, which is such a shame. You can see it just lying to the side there.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So up until this time last year, this was almost intact, bar the roof, but Ray's just gone inside for us to trample down the nettles, so let's go and have a look in.
After you. You can trample down the nettles.
Oh, thanks a lot.
If you lie down, I can just roll you over the top of them.
You're really rude sometimes, do you know that?
I do know that. Right. Confucius, he say, never walk through nettles in shorts. Oh, ow. No, it's okay. Not too bad. Beth, very sensibly, came in her jeans.
Most of these, people always think the roofs fell off them because they rotted away. But in fact, what they used to do is sell the roofs because the roofs are more valuable than anything else. So you'll never find, or rarely find, any roof tiles. So they didn't actually rot away, they just took the roof off them. And of course then most of these are built, this is not so bad, but quite often were built with 2 lots of stone and soil in the middle. And when the rain gets down, it washes the soil out and the stones are split.
That's it.
But this is relatively modern because it's cement and rendered.
So would this have been thatched at one point then and then?
Probably not. I mean, usually you can tell with thatching because they got little
the
stones stick out the ends. They may have been, but more like this would have been tiled because it's a fairly modern house. Because this would replace the one that has gone further up. double floor, fireplace in each room. Seems a bit extreme, but it would be bitterly cold up here.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You imagine there were never trees up here, like it would just be barren.
Goodness me.
And you couldn't really farm this tractor because it's too steep, but they could do it with a horse, which is what they did. This was about 60 or 70 acres, this place, in size, which was quite substantial.
So how many rooms do you reckon there would have been then?
It was a traditional Manx house. You come in here,
Yep.
stairs would be in front of you, you go up the stairs to there, there'll be a landing, be a room there, room there, room here, room there. 4 probably, and a landing.
A little outhouse somewhere,
There
maybe?
would be a toilet somewhere. 5 acres it's called.
A tithe egg. And you were mentioning the hawthorn out there, Beth.
Yeah.
And I came at the end of a story about washing today at some stage or other. What was that? I was just picking up on the end of you were talking about?
Well, it's a story that really Ray came up with, I guess. I think it's fair to say when he was standing here, because there's a washing pot, is it? I don't know if we'll be able to see it.
Oh, right, yeah. Right in the corner there,
Yeah.
surrounded by nettles.
Yeah, obviously. So when we came, I got this idea about a woman who was washing clothes to make because her husband had died, and there was no national assistance or social security those days. You had to make a living. So she actually started washing clothes to make a living, and she had the dibbler to go in the bowl. It broke. So she had to go and find something to make do. So she went and got a gauze stick out of the hedge here and used that, and the clothes are ultra white. And she became the washerwoman of the Tholtan area because their clothes were the best. She never let the secret go. She always kept it to herself. But there is a bit of truth, because in the roots of gauze there is like a starch, a white starch, which will actually do that job.
I'll try that when I get home.
I was going to say, yeah, get rid of your Omo.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't think you can get it
That's the thing, Ray. I think in your Tholtan volumes, there are stories which almost will become folklore, and
yeah.
people really will get a sense of maybe that is what happened.
And maybe that's what I've got is somebody else's story, because none of the books I've got are what I call historical accuracy, they're just what I've been told or found out or worked out. Nothing's really been
Substantiated.
Yes, that's the word. And
yeah.
I got told off a few times by not doing that. I said, well, you do your own book. I don't want to do that. I want to do it the way I want to do it.
And that's a great thing, isn't it? I think because so many of these are on public land, you can walk up to them. You can sort of make up your own stories, can't you? Because you do wonder how many people have stood where we are just in front of the front door here, and they'll have had Christmases here and birthdays and sad occasions, and they'll have just lived their lives, and you will never know exactly what happened, but having had families ourselves, we know some of what may have gone on in these 4 walls.
Well, and also they would never have been on their own. I know we think it is, but there'd be people in and out of everybody's house every day. Births would be done at home. You wouldn't be going to hospital to be carried out here. They didn't have doctors, they'd have herbalists. And there'd be some around here, there'd be somebody who specialised in the herb they grew here, and that would be what would fix you. It would be the doctor or the nurses, like. And it'd be hard life, it would be nothing easy. Everything was carted here and out, like.
And that's the thing, I think. You do look at some of these places, and we're here on a lovely summer's day, light breeze, it's quite warm, blue sky, and you think, wow, wouldn't this be lovely? But then you think, going through the winter in this sort of spot, where there wouldn't have been sort of electricity, you wouldn't have had the old mod cons, it would have been a tough old life. You wouldn't have survived, Beth.
Speak for yourself. I'm tougher than I look. All right.
I think she probably is.
Yes, I think she is.
That one across there, that Slimanic, that didn't even have glass in the windows. They used to just put a sack over the window through the winter time.
So the ones across the way there, because we were pondering about this before, obviously the one we're on here is on Ramblage, people can come. Quite a few of them, I suppose, now are technically on private land.
Yeah, a lot of them are, but most of Tholtan will, because it's government owned, because of the reservoir situation, they are Ramblage. So with a bit of sense and care and avoid lambing time, they're probably free to roam. Without you causing any distress. There are 1 or 2, like this one across the valley, Cregans, that is in private ownership these days.
In front of us here, so we're in the house, they would have had a cattle shed, is it, down there, and then the mill just to the left of it.
We'll
Should we have a
walk down.
wander out there?
Okay, after you.
Go on,
Thank
please.
You go and flatten the
Make
nettles,
sure you
Beth.
lock the door, thanks.
Okay, will do. After you, Ray. Yeah, we'll leave the nettles to their reverie. And it is incredible, the entire centre of the building now, so we're stood in the living room, I guess, or maybe by the kitchen, and it's just a whole bed of nettles. Nice to see some ladybirds on some of them, and then there is a decorative hawthorn in the corner which has sprung up, and some ferns coming out of the walls, and some, but quite pretty actually, the way the ferns cling onto the walls and pop out of little cracks here and there. But two hawthorns. You almost would think they'd been put there deliberately. I don't think they were, but they're nicely in the corner. So let's head out and see where they've got to. So we'll go back out through the arch again, through the main door. And I've lost them already. That was quick. Gone round the corner, have they? Down that way. Well, let's go down. Right, we'll follow them down. They've gone down to one of the outbuildings. So, can't have gone that far. So where are we now, Beth?
Well, we are exploring what would have been the animal quarters. Is that right, Ray?
We call this a haggard.
A what?
Haggard.
A
Or
haggard?
hacket, depending on your Manx way, yeah. They would build the stacks here for the oats and stuff for the winter time. And they put them here, you see, because in here, this is the thrashing barn, where the wheel was there.
Yeah, so that would have been on the far side of that wall. The spinney, is it?
Yeah, just here. And the water came down from that stream there, drove the wheel, and they would have carted the oats in from here in a little thing called sheaves, which is like small bundles of oats, thrashed them in here on this machine, and then the oat would have dropped down inside into loose stuff. They just stored it back in the loft for the winter time, and the oats would have been kept for feeding the horses.
So they really were self-contained, weren't
They
they?
didn't go to Tesco's.
Well, no,
That never happened.
Shop and
I mean, they got a garden there with to grow everything they wanted in it. No greenhouses. And water would be something they carried in a bucket. You know, there wouldn't be anything else. The water would be from the stream. This one here would be like. And they quite often did it like this, where they built the back half of the shed, or built it into the ground.
Right.
Saved them lifting up. So the effort was less, you know. It was easier to chuck stuff down than to chuck it up.
And you can still see in the cattle shed, you can still see the individual
Little slates.
slates where the cattle would have stood. Do you want to go and see?
Oh, right, yeah.
We're gonna have a
So the little stalls.
Right, so just
Well,
be careful here.
Those are the cattle stalls. Watch yourself.
Aha, okay, yes. The wall's just clambering over the top here. Because Ray's just down in front of us. And Beth just picks her way down.
Elegantly.
Oh, well,
Remember to say elegantly.
beautifully elegantly. Beautifully elegant. It's like a ballet.
Here you go. So here are the stalls. And you can see just underneath this grass here, there's like a little trough. That's where the food would have gone.
Right.
And you can see these holes. So there would have been a metal rod that came in those holes there, and with a chain attached to it, so the cow would have been able to stand up or sit down. Not much freedom for it.
No, they would be put in here in October. They stay until April.
Oh my
Tied by the
goodness.
neck. But they would be fine.
Is what it is, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. They'd be fed. The water would, or their food would be in front of them. Their muck would be behind them. They'd be carted outside, spread in the field in the winter time. Everything's done by hand, or horses, basically. This is quite a modern layout because all the units are connected.
Right.
You know, you can go from one to actually going outside. But you see the wall, there's nothing holding together, it's just stone. Every one of those stones is placed by a hand, and quite out the hillside. You know, no JCBs.
No, exactly.
I don't think they may have dynamite, I don't know, but mostly be pick. Somewhere around here there'll be a hole in the ground because what you know, the quarry was always above. So they cut the stone down, never up.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Think about it, everything had to be done for
Yeah.
function. There was no such thing as
No luxury.
no luxury.
No. So do we know when this farm was last used, or when it was
It was
last?
in the 40s.
40s.
Yeah, and it was used as a sheep farm up until the 70s really, but only part of a sheep before they planted all the trees around here. So that was his last time. But the quails were the ones who were in it, as were in most of these places along the way.
That's why you want to know more about them now, don't you? I suppose, Ray, I mean, clearly such an interest which has spanned decades for you, but a real sense of sadness in the fact that they are just crumbling away, and
For me, it
soon.
is because, like you said, I've been doing this for a long time. Some of these places were like, they were totally intact, and now like we're going back to just like this with piles of stones. And I think really people want to see them, they've got to see them and photograph them themselves. That's the only thing we're going to have records of. Oh, maybe in my books too there'll be records. Because in the books I think there's 140 Tholtans. Well, 22 now don't exist.
Oh my goodness.
So I couldn't go back and do the books anymore because they're not there now. They're flattened or gone or disappeared.
So have you got a history background anyway? Is it something that you're interested
I'm a
in?
farmer's son by trade, and my farm used to farm in St Mark, so my father used to quite often do these sort of things, take us out like as kids. And as you're a kid, you think, I'd rather climb a tree. What's funny about these old buildings, Dad? I don't understand why we're coming here. We got one at home like this. Well, you need to learn, son. So I wasn't interested when I should have been, because all the people who knew about these places, he knew, they were there, and I didn't want to talk to them. I wanted to go and play.
It's funny, isn't it? We often say that, don't we? We just wish that you could turn time back and just realise how important those conversations would have been.
Absolutely, because they never wrote them down, you see, and when they were sitting having tea and talking about there'd be Auntie Molly here and Uncle Dick there, and I think, I know these people are dead, they've nothing to do with me. Now I wish I'd paid attention, I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah.
It's always the way, I think, yes. I've got, I just think I've got, like, I never met either of my grandfathers, so I never heard them. I did get a little bit of my nana, and she's got a little bit on tape when home recording was just coming in, you know, and you think, again, you don't have to go that far back, and unlike now where you can just have your phone and record anything and everyone records everything pretty much, 40, 50 years ago, that wasn't quite as easy. So if you had people, loved ones, their voices won't be recorded in the same way they are now. I mean, you think when you're long gone, Beth, there'd be hours and hours of stuff for people to listen and think, that was Beth. But I mean, 50 years ago, it wouldn't have been the case.
No.
Some of them wouldn't have talked, are they? They'd just climb up as soon as you shove some of these, they'd just stop talking.
Exactly.
They wouldn't do it. Like. What else would you like to know?
I just want to know everything. I want to know everything. The good thing, I suppose, Ray, is certainly from what we found, is there is a real appetite that people have in seeing this history all around them. And I suppose lockdown actually was one of the key things for that. Once you could get out for a walk, something to do.
You could come to these places. Quite often I'd be out and about. I would bump into somebody where usually I would never have seen anybody, but this last month, 3 or 4 months, this place especially. It's a bit like Strand Street.
We were mentioning before, because I used to come up here, and I was chatting to Ray as we were walking up here, and we used to go camping with some friends up on the Sulby Claddock. And one place I mentioned, which you'd heard of as well, was the Clugget Pot, as Ken always used to call it, which is sort of not far from here, realistically, I suppose, in as the crow flies, and was a beautiful sort of little waterfall and little sort of stone pool.
It's just over the hill on the next valley, and it is it is called the Clugget Pot. The water comes cascading down into a pot, and it's deep and smooth, really good, but unfortunately it's on property.
That's the thing, isn't it?
It is.
So we've got a few weeks to do these walks around Tholtan's Ray. What are the ones that we really need to make sure that we see?
Right, can I come back to you with that one?
Yeah.
With an answer? Because there's quite a few.
Would be nice, wouldn't it, to have a little hit list, maybe of a few we could do in this little series.
Yes.
And just give a flavour of how many were you reckoning Tholtan's still existing?
Well, in the 3 books I've done, there's 140 I've done. And I've got 60 I never did, so there's 200 that I know of. But there'll be more, because they knock the trees down now, you'll see more and more come available, like anything in the trees is fair game.
So is there a volume 4 in this then?
No, there isn't. I've thought about it, but I don't think so. I may put one where like Neve said, there's an idea about like a footpath guide, so put them all in a smaller book.
And especially, more people are going to be doing staycations this year, unless anyone's venturing off to Guernsey. So it's just an idea of stuff to do during the summer holidays, get the kids out and, get them to see something which they won't appreciate now, but may do in years to come.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because my son popped round his mum with his girlfriend. He said, we went camping last night. I said, oh, did you? Oh, where'd you go? We said we went to Tholtan Wanderers. So we was up here, because me and Neve came up here about 5 years ago, and we were camping here, and it was a really still night, and a bat hit the side of the tent. With a light in the tent, and this thing looked like a vampire, and it just crawled down. It went down the side of the tent. Didn't sleep all night. And I said, why have you come up here? He said, because it's a nice spot. So you do inspire kids, but if you try to make them do it,
they're not interested.
It's no use.
No use at all. It's got to be in their own time scale.
So perhaps, if you speak nicely to Ray, we can encourage him to give us a little hit list of a few we could do over the next few weeks.
That would be great. I mean, and if Ray's got any other free time...
Not a problem. I'd love to do it with you. I enjoy it.
Yeah, that'd be really good. I think we'll never find the hidden gems, I don't think, without somebody who truly knows where they are, who's written about them and can make up stories about them.
Even better.
Well, that's all from the Tholtan Wanderers this week. We just want to say thank you so much to Ray Kelly. It was just a wonderful afternoon up there at Tholtan Wanderers. We did mention his books. There are 3 volumes of the Manx Tholtans. Unfortunately, the first one is out of print, but he does have some copies of the 2nd and 3rd volume. So do let us know if you'd like to get your hands on one of those. Next week, we're going to be at another Tholtan location. But if you've got any Tholtans that you think we should see, please do get in touch with us. You can email bethsb@manxradio.com or howardkane@manxradio.com. You can find our contact details on the Manx Radio website. If you head to the Facebook page, there are some wonderful photographs of the Tholtan we visited at the weekend. So we look forward to being back with you next week.